we did a lot of our interviews together, and I had done a lot of interviews with him ever since we were in Islamabad and in Karachi. And I was just very fed up about, terrorists and terrorism. So that evening I said, I'm just not going to come. And we were supposed to leave to Dubai the next day. And Danny and I had this system that, because again, there was no protection at the time for us. And so I said, we had a system that if one of us, if we were not together, we would call each other every 30, 40 minutes so that we just knew everything was okay. So I called Danny after 30 minutes, 40 minutes, and after the second time I called him, I knew that, I knew instinctively that something was wrong, and very wrong. And, I had for me, I can't tell you exactly why, but obviously being in the context, knowing what was going on, remember this is only like a few months after 9/11, I just felt, this is bad, and this has to do with Al-Qaeda. And I was alone with Danny's friend Asra, another girl. All we had were our computers. We didn't know what was going on. We were in Karachi. We had absolutely no one to rely, we didn't know what. That's it. That was it. So, when after I realized, I understood that was going to be bad. All these things that I told you about, this whole idea of human revolution, all the things that brought Danny and I together, all the things that we stood for, I understood that that was going to be the ground of the battle. And I understood from there on, and at that moment, obviously it was a question of life and death, but somehow it was a question beyond life and death, because, I could make it, I could not make it, he could make it, he could not make it. But to me, what was essential at that moment is that, did we live for the right things? Well, are we right? Is that our beliefs strong enough to get us through this, beyond the question of survival? And that first night, I decided that if anybody was going to be determined to find Danny, it was me. And so I decided to retain any information that we had, which was basically containing our computers. I had this computer. And so I decided not to share anything before I knew who was who and, what to do. So that first night, Asra and I just worked together, just get all the information. Obviously, as the night went on, it was worse and worse and worse. I started doing some search about the people he was interviewing or were connected with these people, and it was really, really bad, very, very scary. So at about 3, 4 o'clock in the morning, I called the U.S. consulate. And I believe the man I called at that moment is now in Alaska somewhere, because he said, he's probably drunk somewhere. I'll come back in the morning, and and so I had to wait until actually dawn broke, and he was replaced to talk to somebody at the U.S. consulate, who came over and gave me some names of the Pakistani police that he trusted. And so I called these people. And then the next morning, there's like maybe 15 people in the room, and they're all over the place. And, without going into much detail, but Pakistan has a very complicated secret service called the ISI. And obviously I knew they were there. And so, just giving you the context to tell you, you didn't know who to trust at all. And you knew that, I knew that, Danny was kept by people that had just done 9/11. So, I knew what we were talking about. So, really, I can say fairly that I have put my convictions into trial. And at that moment, I decided that I wasn't thinking about, dying, living, or survival, a lot of that. I was thinking that no matter what happens to us as individuals, these just people just can't win. It's just not possible. We just can't let them win, no matter what it costs. And that was my determination, and it was just obvious to me. And it made sense to me that all my life, all my origins, and all my training, in my marriage, everything, brought me to that moment, and thanks God I had a solid ground on which to walk. So I tried to find some allies. I mean, I'm just focusing on that because I'm telling you, at that moment, you are alone. You are. Even though I had, a lot of people and a lot of people were ready to help. But in terms of, that determination that makes for that human revolution, that's yours. That's yours to make. And I did that, and I was absolutely convinced that Danny was feeling the same. Obviously, he was, held captive. He was thinking about survival, but he also knew who he had in front of him. And I was just convinced that he was thinking the same thing. So we put a team together, and this team, came to reflect very strangely all these things that I'm telling you about, because I don't know exactly how it happened, but it turned out that so I basically chose the people I was going to share this information with, which made everybody very angry, imagine, the ISI, the FBI, and the this and that, But they couldn't do anything. I was pregnant, And so I said, I couldn't do anything. So I just said, I'm just going to choose the people that I think, can be my ally. And so that team came together, and we were like, 6, maybe 8 or 9 of us. And it turns out there was, this is the first time in the history of journalism and in the history of law enforcement that, first of all, the Pakistani and the Americans started working together. And then there were 2 Jews, and probably the only 2 Jews in Pakistan at that time. There were, like 4 Muslim people. There was 1 Christian and 1 Hindu. And, again, there are very, very few Hindu, maybe 5 in the whole of Pakistan. But they were with me in that room, in that house, and also, it was women and men working together, and it was journalists and police working together. So I think, from the set, from the very beginning, everybody was understanding that, we were in a situation that involved a family, but more than that, it's like it was like 2 visions of the world fighting each other. In a way, in our own little microcosm, this team, came to reflect the diversity of the world and a desire for a world to be that. And then he was held captive a few miles away, it turned out, by people who had the polar opposite for the world. The exact opposite. And so I think everyone, went through, obviously me, but I think everyone involved in that team went beyond their limits to try to find Danny. Meaning, for instance, one of the person that was the key investigator, I call him Captain, is a Pakistani man. That works in anti-terrorism unit. After 2 days, his wife came, and she said to me, she came to tell me, like, I know he was very dangerous. He would go on raids every night, and obviously he would leave at night. I would never know he was going to come back. And she said, I know it's like that, and I think we can't lose that battle. Even if I am to lose my husband. So that was, that was what was going on in that house, and that's what the level of commitment that everybody gave. And I think beyond the fact that Danny was a legitimate journalist and obviously not a spy as he was accused, but beyond the fact that he was innocent was also the fact that we can't lose that battle, period,